Number 9. Isidro Zarate. 39-year-old Isidro Zarate of San Antonio, Texas, took a trip to Walmart with his wife, Lisa Benavides, on November the 25th of 2016. It being Black Friday, the parking lot was filled to the brim with eager shoppers. Zarate dropped his wife off at the front of the store and proceeded to circle the lot while she was inside. As he awaited her return, he noticed a man attacking a woman. The assailant was later identified as 21-year-old Teles Mandan Juarez, who had grabbed his victim by the hair and was punching her repeatedly. It's unclear if there was any connection between them. Zarate pulled up in his vehicle and pleaded with him to stop. Juarez did let go of the woman, but only to reach for the firearm he was carrying. He fired multiple shots in Zarate's direction, striking the Good Samaritan in the neck and killing him. A stray bullet also hit a bystander, though her injuries were not life-threatening. Juarez swiftly fled the scene, but was eventually tracked down by San Antonio police, 10 miles from the Walmart. He was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Number 8. Nadia Ezeldine. On November the 28th of 2014, Nadia Ezeldine was working a shift at the Nordstrom store in the River North neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. On that day, Black Friday had coincided with Ezeldine's 22nd birthday. Her family had planned a surprise party for the young woman after she got off from work. Unfortunately, Ezeldine never made it home that night. She was shot by 31-year-old Marcus D., an ex-boyfriend who had been stalking her for several months. After shooting Ezeldine, he turned the weapon on himself. Ezeldine was transported to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but ultimately succumbed to her gunshot wounds. The Nordstrom's was packed full of Black Friday shoppers who watched in horror as D carried out the killing and then ended his life. To add to the tragedy, the gun that D had used had been falsely reported stolen by Nina Dones and then bought by D, who wasn't allowed to purchase a gun due to mental illness. Dones was prosecuted for disorderly conduct for filing a false police report, a Class 4 felony. Number 7. The Sacramento Mall shooting. On November the 27th of 2020, Black Friday shoppers at the Arden Fair Mall in Sacramento, California were startled by a sudden eruption of gunfire. Employees at the mall reported hearing roughly a dozen gunshots echoing through the establishment. At around 6 p.m., 2 brothers were killed in the shooting. Dwayne James Jr., aged 19, and Saquon Reed James, aged 17, were fired on by 18-year-old Demario Beck at a bank outside the mall following a verbal altercation. Dwayne was dead by the time authorities arrived at the scene, while Saquon was transported to a nearby hospital, ultimately passing away hours later. As they heard the sound of gunfire, shoppers looking to take advantage of Black Friday deals started collectively fleeing for their lives. Large crowds of people flooded into the back rooms of various stores in an effort to hide from the shooter. Fortunately, no one else was injured that night. Within a week of the incident, Beck was charged with the murders of the 2 James brothers. Number 6. Patrick Henry Boyd. On November the 29th of 2013, Patrick Henry Boyd of Clover, South Carolina, took 4 of his friends on a Black Friday shopping excursion to Concord, North Carolina. The group set out in the early hours of Friday morning in an effort to avoid the massive Black Friday crowds. It was still quite early in the day when they finished up their shopping and got back out on the road to return home. Unfortunately, because he'd gotten little rest, Boyd ended up falling asleep behind the wheel of the Honda Accord that carried him and his 4 passengers. The car drifted off the road and collided into a sign in front of a gas station. Boyd was killed on impact, while all 4 of his friends were subsequently taken to the hospital, with 2 of them having suffered serious injuries. One of the passengers later told police that Boyd had complained he was too tired to drive prior to losing control of the vehicle. Number 5. The Reno Walmart shooting. Black Friday shoppers arrived in huge numbers at a Walmart parking lot in Reno, Nevada, on November the 24th of 2016. There was an overflow of cars in the lot, which meant the number of available spaces was low and the tension between frustrated drivers was high. 33-year-old Matthew McGraw became enraged after another car cut him off to claim a parking spot. He got out of his vehicle and angrily confronted the other driver. What started out as a verbal argument rapidly devolved into physical violence. as McGraw proceeded to strike the driver with a metal baton, smashing his windshield and bruising his face. The driver then grabbed his firearm and shot McGraw through the window, killing him. Believing his life to still be in danger, the driver fled the scene, though he fully cooperated with the authorities during the investigation that followed. The police determined that he'd acted in self-defense and they decided not to charge him. Number 4. Nisha and Sheetal Tandel. Arvind Tandel, a father of 4 from Palo Alto, California, was charged with 2 counts of vehicular manslaughter following a traffic accident that claimed the lives of 2 of his own children. 48-year-old Tandel, his wife, and his 4 daughters aged 12 to 24 were traveling in his Lexus SUV after a busy day of Black Friday shopping. On November the 23rd of 2012, the 4 siblings had been crammed into the back of the vehicle in order for the family's purchases to fit in the middle row. There were only 3 seats in the back, and 24-year-old Nisha and 20-year-old Sheetal weren't wearing their seatbelts. Tandel, who was driving, had only gotten 3 hours of sleep the previous night and started showing signs of fatigue. He was drifting in and out of the painted highway lanes and gradually grew nearer to the right-hand shoulder. Meanwhile, a California Highway Patrol officer sat in his cruiser, which was parked inside the shoulder. He'd been assisting a couple who was struggling with a flat tire. Tandel's SUV plowed into the rear of the police car and flipped over, rolling as many as 7 times before coming to a halt. Everyone involved in the collision was taken to the hospital with injuries. The police officer was about to exit his vehicle when the crash occurred. Had he done so, he would have undoubtedly been killed, but he instead suffered wounds that weren't deemed life-threatening. Nisha and Sheetal Tandel were both ejected from the SUV during the accident. The former was pronounced dead at the scene, while Sheetal passed away at the hospital. Arvind Tandel was charged following his daughter's deaths, but the Santa Clara County District Attorney chose not to seek jail time in the resulting court proceedings. Number 3. Walter Vance. A Target in Logan County, West Virginia, was overrun by Black Friday shoppers on November the 25th of 2011. As the customers stampeded through the store, 61-year-old Walter Vance was caught in the chaos and collapsed to the ground. He suffered from a heart condition and went into cardiac arrest amidst the pandemonium. Even as he lay helplessly on the floor, frantic shoppers largely ignored him. Some even stepped over the suffering man to continue shopping. There were nurses at the scene, and they eventually came to Vance's aid, performing CPR until paramedics arrived. Unfortunately, Vance passed away at the hospital. It's unclear whether his chances of survival would have improved if someone had helped him sooner. Today's topic was requested by Instagram followers Latoya Avon Beauty Shop and Kashima Meow. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below, or follow us on Instagram and reach out to us there. Number 2. Jamitai Damore. Just before 5 a.m. on Black Friday 2008, a Walmart in Long Island, New York, prepared to open its doors to the public. Before doing so, however, store employees formed a human barricade just inside the entrance to preemptively slow down the flow of shoppers waiting on the sidewalk outside. There were roughly 2,000 people in total awaiting Walmart's opening. Once the doors were finally unlocked, the mass of customers spilled into the store, trampling over the helpless employees, fruitlessly trying to slow them down. Among the workers knocked to the ground was 34-year-old Jamitai Damore, who gasped for air as the reckless mob continued to crush him. Many of his co-workers attempted to come to his aid, but they had to fight off a seemingly endless influx of shoppers to get to him. Paramedics were called to the scene, but even first responders found it difficult to perform CPR on Damore without getting stepped on and knocked about by the crowd of people. Even after Damore had passed away on the floor of the Walmart, shoppers continued their frenzied search for discounted items. The entrance doors to the store were ripped from their hinges during the rampage, and 4 other people were injured, including a woman who was 8 months pregnant. Police struggled to find any individual they could hold criminally accountable after examining the store's surveillance tapes. Walmart itself was fined a mere $7,000 for failing to provide the store with adequate security measures. Number 1. Ashley Harris. In the early hours of November the 28th of 2014, the assistant manager of an American Eagle store in Fort Worth, Texas, went home after working an overnight Black Friday shift. It was roughly 3 a.m. when Ashley Harris got back to her apartment, and a friend of hers stopped by for a brief visit. The meetup marked the last time Harris was ever seen alive. Soon after her friend's departure, the 31-year-old store manager was accosted by 2 former employees of hers, 25-year-old Carter Cervantes and her boyfriend, Clarence Mallory, age 19. Both Cervantes and Mallory had previously been fired from Harris's American Eagle location after being suspected of stealing $18,000 from the store's safe. The 2 assailants came to Harris's apartment and proceeded to beat her. They bound her hands and feet, then set her body and the house on fire. They took her store keys with the intention of breaking in and stealing the Black Friday profits, which were projected to have been around $50,000. Firefighters responding to a fire alarm arrived at Harris's apartment hours after the attack and discovered her body. Cervantes and Mallory were later arrested and charged with capital murder. During their trials, Harris's neighbor testified to hearing screams and crashes coming from her apartment that night. He saw a black Infiniti G35, which was later identified as Cervantes' car, driving away from the scene after the door to Harris's apartment had been slammed shut. The 2 disgruntled former employees were also caught on the American Eagle surveillance CCTV cameras trying to unlock the doors to the store at 2 a.m. the following morning. After it was discovered that Harris's keys had been taken from her apartment, the store changed its locks. So Cervantes and Mallory were unsuccessful in their attempts to gain access to the safe. Both of them were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have to work at a busy store on Black Friday or have to work the graveyard shift at a store in the middle of nowhere? Let us know in the comments below.